Hi there, and welcome to Getting Started with ICR for Java on AWS. My name is Charlie Bedard, and in this video, I will show you how to subscribe to ICR for Java, authorize developers, and access the navigator. I assume that you are already familiar with the ICR workflow. If not, I recommend that you look at our video, Introduction to Intelligent Code Repair for Java, for a helpful overview. You can get a link to that video on OpenRefactory's website or from the Amazon MarketPlace listing. These are the steps we will review in this tutorial. We will start with the Marketplace listing. After setting key configuration information, we will obtain the instance ID and IP address, which we need to authorize GitHub or GitLab. Then we will connect to the ICR Navigator and complete the GitHub or GitLab authorization. After that, ICR for Java is available for analyzing and repairing your Java projects. Let's walk through all the steps together. We'll start with the AWS MarketPlace listing. Click on Continue to Subscribe to begin the configuration. Review the terms and conditions for OpenRefactory's End-User License Agreement. Continuing implies that you have reviewed and are in agreement with the EULA. If you are OK, click on Continue to Configuration. Your default region is set by your AWS account, but you can change regions if you like. This may be helpful if the majority of the developer team is located in geographically distant locations. Let's go on to launch this instance. We will be using the Launch from EC2 console mode because we need to configure some important information. Let's configure this instance by moving to the EC2 console. Before we walk through all of the steps to configure this new instance, however, we need to take a brief detour. Some of the required information needs to be set up before we continue, and we can do that here from the EC2 console. We will click on the Services menu here to take us to this master screen of options. We locate the Security, Identity, and Compliance group and look for the IAM entry. We right-click on it to open it in a new Browser tab. This allows us to set up a new IAM role while making it easy to return back to our configuration window later. Since ICR for Java uses usage metering so that you are only charged for the time you are using the service, the instance needs to be authorized to make those metering calls. We enable that through this new IAM role we are creating here. Let's click on Roles, and then Create Role. Select EC2 as our use case, and click on Permissions. There are lots of policies, so we enter AWS MarketPlace in the filter box to narrow down the choices. We click on the box labeled AWS MarketPlace Metering Full Access to add this to the role. Continue by clicking on Tags, and then Review. Now we can enter the name of our new role, which we will be using shortly when we return to configure the rest of the instance. With the new role created, we have another piece of data to prepare. Click on Services again, bringing us back to the Master Options screen. This time, we go to the Compute group and select EC2. In the menu on the left, we look for the Network and Security group of options. Amazon requires you to be able to log into your instance using SSH, so we need to create an SSH key pair. We select key pairs. This will display any key pairs that you have already created. You can choose to reuse one of these if you like. But for this example, we will create a new pair just for ICR for Java. Click on Create Key Pair. We will enter the name of the new pair using the PEM file format. Then click on Create Key Pair to generate the keys. Now that we have created the special IAM role for metering and an SSH key pair for remote login, let's return to the original window and complete the ICR for Java instance configuration. We need to specify an instance type. This defines the performance characteristics of the server. Since ICR for Java is CPU and memory intensive, only a few high-performance types are currently offered. This makes sure that the virtual machine will have sufficient power to analyze and repair your projects efficiently, lowering your usage time. We choose the M5D 2x large. If that instance type is not available in your region, you can choose the alternative M5AD 2x large. Now, let's set up some more details. Select a subnet within your region for your instance. The next most important item on this page is specifying the IAM role, which we just created. We'll do that here. The other item of note is the shutdown behavior. We recommend leaving it at stop. This means that you can stop and restart your EC2 instance to save on Amazon EC2 charges. You do not want to terminate the instance, because that will delete the instance and you will lose any analysis results that you may have produced. Next step is to verify the storage values. The default values set the persistent storage at 100 gigabytes and SSD storage at 300 gigabytes. The SSD storage does not cost anything extra, and it is used to store the comprehensive metadata used during analysis. We can skip through the add tags as they are not needed for ICR for Java. You do need to create a security group to enable access from developers' browsers. The ICR for Java listing includes a default security group. Unless there is a need to alter this, it is recommended to use this group. All you need to do is name it. Click on Review and Launch to move to the final step of instance configuration. Review your entries to make sure that they match what you requested, and hit Launch to finally get the instance running. As part of this launch, you will need to assign a key pair to this instance. We will assign the pair that we created a few moments ago. Your instance is now ready to be assigned a virtual machine in the cloud. Launching it will take you to your EC2 console, where you can see the instance. For convenience, we'll give it the name ICR for Java Server. One of the important pieces of information is your instance ID. Take note of this, as you will need it later to connect to the navigator. The EC2 console is also where you determine the public IP address for your instance. OpenRefactory recommends that you create an elastic IP address and associate it with your instance. The elastic IP address allows you to stop and restart your instance while keeping the public IP the same. Let's see how to create an elastic IP address. From the EC2 console, select Elastic IPs as part of the Network and Security group of options. Click on Allocate Elastic IP Address to get a new elastic IP address ready. The IP address must be local to your region, so allocating one out of the pool for your region is recommended. Click on Allocate to add the new elastic IP address to your account. Once allocated, you can give it a name if you wish. The final step is to associate it with the instance that we just launched. This public IP address will be used to both access the service and to authorize the service with your chosen cloud-based source code repository. For our example, we'll be using GitHub. With the EC2 configuration completed, let's look at the next phase. This is the step where we authorize the ICR server to connect to GitHub or GitLab and allow it to retrieve repository contents from them. Let's look at how we do this using GitHub. We will configure GitHub to allow login redirects using the OAuth standard. OAuth is a well-accepted industry protocol that authorizes a service, like ICR for Java, to redirect login requests from a third party. It also authorizes the third party, assuming the redirected credentials are authenticated, to access that user's repositories. We'll look at how this is done using GitHub. GitLab is similar and is described in our user guide. To get to the OAuth page, log into GitHub and pull down the User menu to see Settings. From Settings, click on Developer Settings and then choose OAuth Apps. Clicking on New OAuth App allows you to add your new EC2 server to the list of approved apps. You can name the application as you wish. The key items are the homepage URL and the callback URL. Here is where you need your public IP address. In this example, we will use the elastic IP address that we assigned earlier. The homepage URL is the IP address followed by port 3002. The callback URL is the IP address and port followed by the text /login/github/return. With that data entered, click on Register Application. That will authorize your instance for use with OAuth and provide you with the client ID and client secret. These are used to match your EC2 instance with GitHub to complete the protocol. With the IP address registered and the client ID and secret ready, we'll keep this window around as we will need it shortly. The final phase of getting started is using your browser to connect to the ICR for Java Navigator. You use the elastic IP address to access the Navigator for the first time, where you will complete the OAuth handshake with GitHub and then be ready to analyze your projects. Let's connect to the Navigator using our elastic IP address. This takes us to the passphrase page. Since we are using a public IP address to reach the server, it is possible that non-authorized people might attempt to access your instance. The security passphrase is used to block non-authorized access. The default passphrase is the EC2 instance ID. Copy it now and use it to enter the Navigator. Once you gain access, you are prompted to change the passphrase to something you can share with your developers. With access granted, you can select your chosen cloud-based source code repository. Since we have been using GitHub as our example, we select GitHub. The first time that the Navigator accesses GitHub, it will prompt you to complete the OAuth handshake by requesting the client ID in secret. Enter the client ID in secret from the other page. After the handshake is complete, the first GitHub user to use the Navigator will be prompted to confirm that ICR for Java is the application which will be accessing GitHub. Click on Authorize, and everything is now ready. Selecting GitHub again shows all of your available repositories. You can now begin your first project analysis. So, now you know how to select ICR for Java using the AWS MarketPlace, how to configure it, and how to launch it successfully. You may want to check out our detailed tutorials on how to initiate and monitor an analysis, and on how to review and process results from our website, www.openrefactory.com. There, you will also find our user guide, which is a helpful reference. Thanks for watching.